All right, buckle up, everyone, because we are diving deep into some pretty big changes happening in Kenya.
Oh, yeah.
They're basically overhauling their entire education system,
Yeah.
and we've got some fascinating insights straight from the source.
Right, from someone who's been in the thick of it, a Kenyan teacher and trainer who's seen it all.
Exactly. So think of this deep dive as your insider's guide to what's going on.
And trust me, it's going to be interesting, especially for the very first class going through this new system.
They're the pioneers, right?
Yeah.
The first ones to experience this competency-based curriculum, or CBC as they call it.
Yep, CBC. And it's a huge departure from their old 844 system, like a whole new world.
So where do we even begin with something this big? What's the first thing listeners should know?
Well, it all boils down to ninth grade. That's the pivotal year.
Ninth grade, why is that so important in this new setup?
Because ninth grade is when they determine which senior school pathway each student will follow.
Oh, so it's like a fork in the road. Ninth grade is where they decide their future direction.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, they've introduced a brand new exam for these ninth graders, the Kenya Junior Secondary Education Assessment, or KJAS for short.
Okay. KJ Sally, got it. But I'm guessing it's a lot more than just your average test.
Oh, absolutely. This one has some serious weight to it.
Like, how much weight are we talking?
It counts for a whopping 60% of their final grade. Can you believe that?
60%. Wow, that's a huge chunk. So the pressure's definitely on.
You bet it is. But here's the thing. It's not just about passing or failing this exam.
So there's more to it than just a score. What else is at stake here?
Well, the KJACA results actually determine which of the 3 senior school pathways a student will be placed into.
3 pathways.
Okay.
Let's break those down. What are these 3 different options?
You've got arts and sports science, then there's STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and lastly, there's social sciences.
All right, 3 very distinct paths.
Yeah.
So tell me, what would a typical day look like for a student in, let's say, arts and sports science?
Oh, picture this. A school where dancers, athletes, and visual artists are all encouraged to hone their crafts, to really explore their creative side.
It's like a haven for those who might not fit the traditional academic mold.
Exactly. It's all about nurturing creativity and physical talent.
That's awesome. But what about the students who are more drawn to problem solving? The ones who love to tinker and build, where do they fit in?
That's where STEM comes in, the pathway for future scientists, engineers, the tech innovators of tomorrow.
STEM, that's a popular one these days. But you mentioned there are actually 4 tracks within STEM, right?
That's right. It's not just one-size-fits-all STEM anymore.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these 4 tracks.
Well, you've got pure science, applied science, technology, and engineering, and then there's career technology studies.
Wow. They really are getting specific with these STEM tracks. It sounds like they're saying, hey, we need to equip our workforce with the right skills for the future.
Yeah, it's very forward-thinking, isn't it? They're recognizing the need for specialized skills in a rapidly changing world.
It's like they're creating a pipeline of highly skilled professionals in fields that are going to be in high demand.
Exactly. They're preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow, jobs that might not even exist yet.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we've got the artists and the scientists covered. What about the students who are fascinated by people and societies? You know, the ones who love to analyze and understand the world around them.
Well, they would thrive in the social sciences pathway. Think of it as the breeding ground for future leaders, communicators, analysts, people who are drawn to the complexities of human behavior.
Social sciences, that's a broad field. Are there any specializations within that pathway as well?
Yes, even within social sciences, you have options.
What kind of options?
You could choose to focus on humanities and business studies, or delve into the world of language and literature.
So even if you know you're a social science kind of person, you can still tailor your education to fit your specific interests.
Precisely. It's all about finding the right niche for you.
This is all starting to sound very personalized, very student-centered.
It is, and that's one of the big goals of the CBC, to empower students to choose a path that aligns with their passions and their strengths.
But with all these different pathways and tracks, how do they actually decide which students go where? It can't just be based on a single exam, can it?
You're right, it's not solely based on the exam score, though it does play a major role.
So what else do they take into consideration?
Well, KNEC, the organization that administers the KJJCA, they also send out questionnaires to get a better understanding of each student.
Questionnaires, what kind of questions are we talking about?
They're trying to gauge students' interests, their personalities, to get a more holistic view of who they are.
It's like they're saying, hey, we recognize that a test score can't capture the full potential of a student.
Exactly. They're looking at the whole picture.
So it's a combination of their performance on the KJCEA and these questionnaires that helps determine their pathway.
That's right.
This is really interesting. But what about the schools themselves? How do they fit into all of this?
That's where things get even more interesting. You see, senior schools won't be categorized like they are now.
So what's going to change? How will they decide which school a student attends?
Well, students will be placed based on their KJ results, of course.
Right, but what else?
And importantly, they'll also consider the school's capacity and what pathways they offer.
Hold on, so are you saying some schools might specialize in certain pathways while others might offer a bit of everything?
Exactly. It's going to be a much more diverse landscape in terms of what each school offers.
That's a big change, and it sounds like it could really shake things up.
Oh, definitely. We might see some major shifts in the traditional hierarchy of schools.
Wait, are you saying a school that was once considered less desirable could suddenly become highly sought after if they specialize in a pathway that's in high demand?
That's precisely what I'm saying. It's a whole new way of thinking about education, not just about getting into the best school anymore.
It's about finding the best fit, the school that aligns with your passions and your goals. It's like they're saying, hey, we value each and every student, and we want to help them find their path, even if it means turning the traditional system on its head.
That's a great way to put it.
So where does location fit into all of this? Are students still going to have to travel far and wide to attend these specialized schools?
That's a really good question, and it actually leads us to another big change under this new system.
Oh, yeah, this one's a game changer, especially for families.
Okay, I'm all ears. What is it?
Get this. They're prioritizing keeping students close to home for senior school.
Whoa, hold on. So no more sending kids off to boarding schools miles away.
That's the idea. They're really trying to make education more accessible and equitable for everyone.
Wow, I can already see how this could have a massive impact on communities.
Right.
Parents would have more time with their kids. Local economies could benefit from students staying closer.
Exactly. It's like they're trying to weave education into the fabric of the community.
It's a really beautiful idea. But how do they actually decide which school a student goes to?
Well, proximity is a big factor. So the closer the school, the better the chances.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But they also have to look at the availability of slots at nearby schools. And of course, they want to make sure there's equal access regardless of gender.
So it's not just about who lives closest, but also making sure everyone has a fair shot at attending a school that offers the pathways they're interested in.
Exactly. They're trying to strike a balance.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about students who live in areas where their chosen pathway isn't offered nearby?
That's a valid concern, and it's something they'll need to address carefully.
It sounds like a logistical puzzle.
It is, but they're committed to ensuring representation from different regions and maintaining a balance across communities.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between localized opportunities and making sure everyone has access to the education they want.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture here.
All right.
How do you think this localized approach will impact communities in the long run?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think we could see some really positive changes.
Like what?
Well, when students are closer to home, it creates more opportunities for the school and the community to connect.
I see what you mean. More parent involvement, more local businesses partnering with schools.
Exactly. It could lead to a much stronger sense of community ownership and pride in the local education system.
I love that idea. It's like schools become these vibrant hubs of activity, not just for students, but for everyone.
That's the vision.
It's a really inspiring shift from seeing education as this isolated thing to something that's truly integrated into daily life.
Right. And it could have a big impact on the local economy, too.
How so?
Well, if they're successful in nurturing talent and providing specialized training at a more localized level,
Yeah,
it could lead to new industries and job opportunities popping up in rural areas.
that would be amazing. It's like they're trying to create a system where opportunity is more evenly distributed.
Exactly, where people can stay in their communities and still find success.
It's a really compelling vision of sustainable development. But let's bring it back to the students themselves for a moment. You mentioned earlier that this whole CBC thing is about equipping learners with 21st century skills.
It is.
But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, it's more than just teaching content. It's about cultivating a whole new way of thinking and learning.
Can you give me an example?
Well, by offering these different pathways and tracks, students are empowered to focus on their strengths and their interests.
Which hopefully leads to them being more engaged and motivated in the classroom.
Exactly, and that can lead to better learning outcomes overall.
It's like they're saying, hey, we get it. Not everyone learns the same way. We're going to create a system that embraces those differences.
Right, it's a far cry from the old one-size-fits-all model.
Okay, but let's be honest. We hear a lot about these so-called 21st century skills these days.
It's definitely a buzzword.
It is. So can you break it down for us? What are these skills that Kenyan students will need to thrive in this crazy, ever-changing world?
Sure, well, it's important to remember that these skills aren't just about technology.
So it's bigger than just knowing how to code or use the latest gadgets.
Much bigger, we're talking about critical thinking, problem-solving, creativity, collaboration, communication, adaptability.
Those are some pretty essential skills for anyone, anywhere.
Exactly. They're the foundation for success in any field.
It's not just about memorizing facts and passing exams anymore. It's about being able to think for yourself, solve problems creatively, work with others, and adapt to new situations.
Right, and that's what makes this shift in Kenya's education system so significant.
They're not just changing the curriculum. They're trying to change the way students think and learn.
Exactly.
It's about empowering them to become lifelong learners,
Yeah.
people who can adapt and thrive no matter what the future throws at them.
That's the goal.
But let's be real for a second. This isn't just a Kenyan issue, is it?
Not at all. Educators and policymakers around the world are wrestling with this same question.
How do we prepare students for a future we can't even predict?
It's a tough one, but Kenya's taking a bold step towards finding solutions.
It's like a giant experiment in education reform, and the whole world is watching.
It's exciting to see what they learn and how other countries might adapt their ideas.
It's a good reminder that we're all in this together. This whole education thing is a global challenge.
Definitely. And it's going to take all of us working together to figure it out.
Absolutely. But before we go too global, let's bring it back to you, the listener.
They were to hear from you.
What are your thoughts on all of this? What stands out to you as we've been talking about these changes? We really do. We want to know what's resonating with you, what's making you think.
Yeah, what are your hopes or your concerns about these changes?
Maybe you're comparing it to your own educational experiences or thinking about how this might impact your own community.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Kenya's new education system,
It's been quite a journey.
it has. We want to leave you with one final thought to chew on.
Something to spark those brainwaves.
Exactly. And it actually came from that Kenyan teacher we mentioned earlier.
The one whose insights have been guiding us through all of this.
Right. What they said really struck me.
Me too. It was about how these 21st century skills they're focusing on.
Yeah.
They're not just some random global trend.
So it's deeper than that.
Much deeper. They're actually deeply rooted in Kenyan values and tradition.
Oh, wow. That's really powerful.
It is. It's not just about blindly adopting things from other countries.
It's about finding a way to make it their own.
Exactly. To integrate those global ideas with the unique cultural context of Kenya.
That's a really important balance to strike, preparing students for a globalized world,
Right.
but also honoring their own heritage and cultural identity.
It's about creating a system that's both globally competitive and locally relevant.
I think that's a message that resonates far beyond Kenya.
I agree.
It's a reminder that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to education.
Every community, every culture, every individual is unique.
Exactly. And we need to find ways to tailor education to those specific needs.
To empower each and every learner.
So as you think about all of this, we encourage you to reflect on the role of education in your own community.
What are the strengths? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities?
How can we make sure that education is relevant and empowering for all learners?
How do we create a system that honors diversity while also preparing students for the future?
These are big questions, but they're worth asking, they're worth discussing, they're worth debating.
Because at the end of the day, the future of education,
It's something we all have a stake in.
it affects us all.
So keep those amazing questions coming, and we'll keep diving deep into these topics that matter.
We're in this together.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning,